Today we're going to dive into Bitcoin and its new price discovery and what this might mean for you both in the short term and maybe the long term as we near that 100K mark. My name is Paul Barron. Welcome back to TechPath. As you guys know, I've talked about the 100K mark for a while now. I don't want to overcommit on that, but we are seeming that a lot of the point of the trends and also the analysis by many of the analysts in the space are pointing to a much higher price discovery zone. I'm still a bit conservative on this, and I think you guys know that of me, but I am also a little bit more bullish right now as we near into mid-November and what this might mean for Bitcoin, because it is on a tear right now and we're seeing some pretty big highs. Jumping to Tech Dev on Twitter, you think you sell the top? How do you know if you're wrong? You can kind of look at where he's talking about with the RSI floors and the confirmed over the last two cycles in bear markets of where that occurred. Both in 2013 and 17, the dip after the first high, bear confirmed, and then the dip after the first high. And I think that's the thing he is getting at here is that you've got to, these type of things are, you have to watch very closely in what this might mean in terms of how you're going to manage your Bitcoin portfolio. And if you're, listen, if you're a maxi and you're holding through this, none of this matters. You stop watching the video right now, even though we're going to have a good chart for you I think you'll like. But if you are looking at short-term gains and then recovery during a bear market, then these strategies that we get into here on this show really kind of lean into that approach on just general blockchain investing. So that's the one thing to be aware of. Before we can dive deep on this one, these are market movers. The market movers are pretty straightforward. We'll pull together data, some research here, and then provide you guys some insights on our own data, our proprietary data, the Crypto Power Index that we basically use and measure on both sentiment and amplification, which helps us kind of determine an indice for a forecast of how a particular project might perform. And that's for our own purpose, not investment advice. All right, so let's get over here what Plan B is talking about, because everybody always wants to know, all right, well, where is Plan B on the current scenario? I like this thing because he really talks about this a lot with his followers is that, hey guys, come on, I don't analyze anything on stock to flow. And I like that whole point about it. Forget USD and quantum easing, Bitcoin, 37 ounces of gold. So you look at kind of the history of gold. I don't have that chart, but I should probably get it for you guys. Just the history of gold over the past 12 years and where Bitcoin has gone over the past 12 years. Google that chart. You're going to be very surprised on what that looks like in terms of how it's coming. Zimbabwe government, he usually drops some really cool stuff here on his channel. If you're not following him, you should get into it. Here's his stock to flow model, which is predicting the 100K average for this halving period. And based on the floor model, which we reach 100K this year, but on the stock to flow model, he predicts 288. Now this is his S2FX model, which is a little bit different, I believe, the 288K average on this cycle, which is kind of interesting because we'll need some fireworks in 2022 for that to occur, being the front half of 2022, which is the second leg of the bull market and kind of how this goes forward. So you see a lot of analysts kind of pointing in this direction that we are on the very early doorstep to what's going to be happening here in the crypto space. And obviously we've seen big gains already, but always, this is something I'm constantly on the look for, and that is be very cautious on how you play your game and play it very close to the vest, because this is where the game gets real. Not necessarily fourth quarter yet. We're definitely entering the third quarter on how this might flow out. So something to keep your head around. The other thing that I think you should be doing is getting into something that we use for preparing to go into altcoins and preparing just your altcoin strategy in general. We use a product called Token Metrics. Token Metrics is a product, they're a sponsor and a partner of our channel. And I use it for a variety of things. Obviously you can see, just a general index here, but I use it for a lot of the insights, which are the ratings, the sentiment data, which they do a really good job on some of the altcoins as you get into these. So you can kind of take a look of here what's going on with Solana. Very positive on that one. Obviously we know that, but the point is you'll also find some gems in here if you're utilizing some of their more advanced tools on token metrics, because I have found many cases they'll identify a token early on, give us some sentiment and some reports. They also do a couple of report drops that you guys should check out. But that is something that I do use often. They've got a great rating system. They have this thing called the TM grade, which is a great tool to really understand the power of a particular project. Let me zoom in on that for you, just kind of so you understand of where this is going on overall projects that are out there. So you can kind of see a lot of new tokens are in there, and or tokens that maybe you didn't even know were out there. So this is a place for great, speaking of discovery and how to go into altcoins down the road. Back to Bitcoin now. All right, so this is another story coming over from Cointelegraph. Clear skies for Bitcoin price discovery if the 70K Bitcoin sell wall is scaled. So I'm actually feeling a little bit closer to the sell wall being at 75K. And I just feel like that has, and based on data that we look at in consumer science and where sentiment is flowing and how it's flowing, and you'll see this in our chart here in a minute, is that I feel like the 75K mark is the one we've got to be watching. There may be some, a little bit of fireworks there, and we may see a slight correction. We could see a big correction there. And of course, when that occurs, depending on what causes that correction, which I think it will strictly be a true volume correction, then you have to be prepared to either, one, if you are trying to, maybe you've been in Bitcoin for a while, maybe that's a good time for you to take an exit, or if you're looking at taking an exit. If you've been in Bitcoin maybe since 50K or since May, maybe this is just your first real test to hold. There's a lot of different strategies. I can't choose one for you because everybody is different, but I would just, one, be aware that when we do see a correction, and we will before all this is over, how are you going to play it? Have you got your strategy in place to kind of move in that direction? So Bitcoin clinging to 68K on November 9th after traders declared a clear for takeoff, ready for Bitcoin to further price discovery. Kind of the same thing that we're looking at here. But they are looking at data from their Cointelegraph Markets Pro and TradingView, which has tracked a second night of impressive gains. That's another thing that you guys, I'm not sure you are doing a lot of this, but if you're not watching the overnight data, on-chain data come in, it's a good indicator. It's usually the first thing I check in the morning when I go into the charts and really jump into TradingView and start looking at our own power index, how that relates to overnight trading data, because a lot of that on-chain data really will start to reveal some interesting stuff. But the pair spent most of Sunday at near 62K. That a lot of people saw that over the weekend, and then is now up 11.4% over the last 2 days, including the all-time high of the 68.5. So good moves. And again, analysts right here, Pintoshi, saying, listen, we are clear now for takeoff, and this I think is going to be interesting to watch. Then you've got Phil, co-founder and analyst trading Centrader, also built on existing bullish convictions, noting that Bitcoin is now tackling what he called the Great Wall of Finex, which I think is a good term for that one. But you can kind of see where people are looking at it. Bitcoin price consecutively set all-time high monthly close, all-time weekly, and all-time daily. Definitely looking in for upward movement here when you look at the charts and what that means. I don't know if you guys are utilizing Market Cipher. This is another tool that we use. We've got a link in the description if you want to get it. But there's some cool aspects to Market Cipher, especially when it comes to Bitcoin. And also, from time to time, we'll have Evan Aldo, who is one of our analysts, come in and do those kinds of analysis on Market Cipher. If you're a short-term trader, or maybe even a swing trader where you're looking at a few days, Market Cipher I've found is pretty effective on going in that direction, because this is where we might see some action, especially if you're longing on Bitcoin right now. Even though we could see a little bit of a pullback here, slight pullback, every time it bounces off that all-time high. The other thing that's kind of moving the market, I think, is this, and that is MasterCard, of course, launching crypto-linked payment cards in Asia and Pacific. The reason I think this is a great sign for Bitcoin in general is that this is just in Asia. MasterCard's largest market still here in the US. So the potential for this company to maybe move on into the United States, look at what you're going to be able to do. Instantly convert cryptocurrency into traditional fiat that can be spent anywhere on the MasterCard is accepted. Partners the initiative on the Asia Pacific based crypto platforms, their global crypto card program, according to this statement. And then some 45% of those surveyed in Asia Pacific said they are likely to consider cryptocurrency in the next year, and 12% said they'd used crypto in the last year. So this is going all in the direction that MasterCard is looking for to be able to start to really kind of go out there and expand. Again, remember, mainstream, we're not there yet. We are not in the mainstream investment queue, so to speak, yet. And that, I think, is one of the key things that has to happen is major financial institutions have to make big plays. Someone like a MasterCard, an Amex, or major banks making those big plays. We've had several banks here on the show, and they're great, but they're not, Bank of America or JP Morgan or someone like that is making big plays in the space. Lots happening there. And there was a couple of reports also that there's a pretty good size of institutional capital that is now starting to look for orders, meaning let's get some of this in our portfolio. Even Anthony Scaramucci was saying that he's been seeing a lot more buy orders coming in on Bitcoin, which indicates that we've got institutional plays starting to play into this second leg of the bull cycle. Another big potential right there. Fear and greed, this is where it gets a little bit scary for me, is when you see that index continually climbing. So last month, 71, which you can see right here in the 80s. So right here, you're just entering the good zone last week. We were at 73. This week, of course, yesterday, jumping to 75, and now we're sitting at an all-time high. This is a big jump right here. This gets me a little bit cautious. Anytime we feel complacency in the marketplace around Bitcoin, guess what? The bulls like to do their dance, and that's when liquidity starts to happen. So be cautious as you continue to look at this. Maybe there's some exits that you might be looking at right now. If you're at 68K, maybe there's an exit. I know with me, my strategy is pretty simple. At 75K, which I think is the market where we'll see a lot of pushback, that mark, 75K, that's when I start doing a little bit of liquidation, and I shouldn't say liquidation, but profit taking off of the Bitcoin portfolio and start looking into some other projects. So a lot of people I know right now that you're watching this channel, you're already maybe doing that. You're saying, hey, Paul, we've already started taking out Bitcoin. We're moving into altcoin, maybe into Ethereum. We are going to hit an Ethereum video because it's some cool Ethereum stuff coming soon. So definitely into that. Let's get over to the chart quickly. All right, so what you saw with this data period right here, end of September, was that not all time, but that at that point was our low, a new market low, which is around 40K. Then we started to see this move, even though we were still anticipating a little bit slower move up, we were right on it with our prediction where it hit that recent all-time high, which was on the 66.8 figure. And then, of course, an adjustment. Remember this right here, though, the flip of sentiment and amplification. Anytime that starts to occur where amplification has a higher score than sentiment, it usually indicates some parabolic movement, especially if it starts to separate in a big way. But if it's right there on it, if it's starting to kind of wheel tuck on sentiment, usually it's definitely up typically, but it's not. We're not seeing those big jumps like what we do on some of these these crazy projects that really make parabolic moves in 24 hours. But Bitcoin a little bit more predictable. We were looking at a little bit softer climb coming out of this. We did see a little bit of a move right here. Definitely was on right there in terms of the downtrend. Also, this little trough right here, we anticipated that to actually be somewhere out about here. So we're off about a day here on this one. But right here, Bitcoin definitely performing in the zone that we're looking at. And I think that's the thing. Oops, let me kill that. That's the thing that I think we have to be on the lookout for as we start to move into the end of the year. Now let's take a look at where that might flow out. So right now we're looking at around the 13th, a low here at around 71. This is where it starts to clip over in the next few days. Now, could it hit the high? This next eclipse right here is at the 85 mark. That's the high on end of November. And I think we're still there, but I do have a little bit of concern right here in early December, which is this little patch right here. And anytime I see a big bubble like that starts to move down, it tells me the amplification is weakening. And that will be the big key here with Bitcoin as we start to move through, kind of this line right here, moving into this zone. And of course, again, still holding true to my 100K mark by end of December. I feel like this is where everything's pointing in this direction. The analysts are kind of pushing this direction, but it's also very cautious because when that happens, when everybody is pointing to the same thing, it's kind of like that 10th man. You almost have to have someone really looking at analysis in a different way to make sure that you don't necessarily get caught out there in the open water without a life vest. So just be cautious as we get into this. This is where things are going to get really dicey on Bitcoin as it really climbs. You're going to feel very euphorious as this thing starts to move. That's the point in which you have to start checking your ego, understanding your exit, and making sure you're in the right position to kind of move if you need to on any of your investments like this. And I know that's the way I do it, and hopefully that's going to work for some other people that are out there in the place. Make sure if you are listening over on the podcast, number one thing you can do right now is to jump over here to the YouTube channel, because it's the place where we're going to see all of this charting and where we kind of do a lot of our forecasting here on the CPI for our index and how it moves forward with forecasting a lot of this stuff. The other thing is you got to jump into the Diamond Circle, man. It's free and it's easy to get to. You just go to paulbaronnetwork.com/diamond-circle and you're there, man. And we're going to drop some cool stuff to you. You get some reports coming to you very soon. We're going to start dropping a couple of emails. I know we don't like sending a lot of stuff out to you. We don't want to spam you. So if you like what we send you, just drop it in the comments, because I know many of you have joined the Diamond Circle for maybe just the NFT giveaways and the rewards. But if you like some of the asset stuff that we deliver to you, the insights and many of those kinds of things, let us know, because we want to know if you guys would want more of that or less of that. Let us know in the comments below. Of course, you can hit me up on Twitter @PaulBaron. We'll catch you next time right here on TechPath.